Let's talk some Niners here. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, what the Niners are doing right now really doesn't make a lot of sense from an organizational standpoint. And I'm not sure how this is even possible that they're going about it in this manner. And here's what I'm talking about here. So at the NFL trade deadline, the 49ers told you as an organization everything that you need to know about what they think of the 2025 San Francisco 49ers. The Niners came to a decision, came to an agreement that they don't think that they can compete here in the 2025 season, despite going into the NFL trade deadline at 6-3 on the year. And I know they suffered from a bunch of injuries, but this is a team that has Kyle Shanahan calling the offense. This is a team that has Robert Saleh calling the defense. And when you get in the dance with that level of coaching, anything can happen. Remember back in 2021, the Niners made it to the NFC Championship game when they started 3-5. In 2022, they made it to the NFC title game when they started 4-4. Some people might combat that and say, well, Chase, that year they had Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. They also had Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021. Mac Jones and Brock Purdy are better. And in 2022, they had a third-string quarterback taken with the last pick who was a rookie that year in Brock Purdy. You get into the dance and anything can happen. And I think it's important for a young team to try to get playoff experience. And we saw against the Rams, this defense is so shorthanded. The Niners could have used a move or moves to improve the team. But they kind of waved the flag here, the white flag, on what they can accomplish here in 2025 and put a ceiling over their heads. We knew going into the season that this year was about resetting and rebuilding for the future. But as I always like to say, context is always important, right? And things can change when you start the year at 6-3 in a wide open NFC, in a wide open NFL, where here we are going into week 11. I have no idea who the best team in football is. And when the Niners play their best ball, they can compete with a lot of the top teams across the National Football League. Of course, injuries can change the decision-making process for what teams decide to do with contract extensions or trades or free agency signings. In this case, for the purpose of this conversation, obviously it altered the Niners' decision-making process going into the NFL trade deadline. But here's why what the Niners are doing right now doesn't make sense and why their plan is kind of baffling, right? By not making a trade at the deadline. And don't get me started on, well, Chase, they traded for Keon White. They added Clelin Ferrell. That was before the Miguel Williams injury. So after the Miguel Williams injury, they had another need or needs along the defensive line. So by not making a move at the deadline, the Niners surrendered. They waved the white flag, and to me, they kind of gave up for the rest of the year. They didn't take themselves seriously as a playoff level team. So if this year for the San Francisco 49ers is about building for the future, and the Niners' decisions going into the NFL trade deadline told us that, I have a question. Why aren't the Niners playing their young players to try to figure out which of these young players can be a part of the future that the Niners are building toward? Why not play some of the youth talent, take the lumps and bruises to see who can actually be a building block? Right now, the Niners' path is not clear. Right now, there's a lot of mixed messaging with what they're actually doing. Right now, the Niners are playing some young players, but a lot of vets who aren't going to be a part of this resetting and this rebuilding process. At this point at 6-4, with plenty of season left, play your young players to develop them, to see what they can become. For a player like Luke Gifford, he was a good signing as a special teamer. The special team since week 4, giving up that 87-yard punt return to the Jags, has been better. Luke Gifford is a special teamer, though, and he should solely be a special teamer. Why is he getting snaps at off-ball linebacker over a third-round pick in Nick Martin if you are building for the future? Nick Martin could play, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, before he had an injury-riddled season last year, he had triple-digit tackles. He had double-digit TFLs. He had multiple pass breakups. He got pressure on the quarterback. He played against the run. He made plays in coverage. The Niners can utilize him, take advantage of his athleticism, and put him in spots to make plays. At the very least, put him on the field as a blitzer because you don't have the defensive line talent or bodies to get after the quarterback to see if he could be a speeding bullet to get after the opposing QB. And I know that sometimes he's going to over-pursue. He's going to miss plays. There will be some misses. But in the preseason, he gave you what Luke Gifford can never give you. Wow plays with wow athleticism. This guy's an athletic freak. And at Oklahoma State, he was one of the most productive linebackers 2 years ago, again, when he was healthy. You think back to that preseason game against the Raiders, right? He was shooting gaps. He was being used as a blitzer. He was making tackles in the flat with that sideline to sideline east-west speed. He made a play down the seam that was impressive. If the 49ers are going to let a player like Upton Stout, who I like, and I think that he can become a good player, mess up all the time and live with his mistakes, why aren't they doing the same thing with a player like Nick Martin? It literally makes no sense, and I'm not sure how the Niners are making decisions like that. How is that even possible? How are you so conflicted as an organization with a path and a plan that's not clear, that doesn't make sense? And some people might say, but Chase, Nick Martin, and Luke Gifford, they play different positions. Okay. Play Nick Martin in practice at that spot to see if he can become a player who can play Sam linebacker, Will linebacker, or middle linebacker. Put him on the field to see what he can do and cater to his skill set to maximize the player. My point here is that Luke Gifford is a special teamer. He should not be dropping back in coverage, and Sunday was a result of that, where he got cooked in coverage. And if you need a bench D winners to play Nick Martin instead of D, do that. Coach Yak tweeting out these numbers. D winners in 2025, 5 touchdowns allowed, most in the NFL. 51 catches allowed, most in the NFL. 3 penalties, tied for most in the NFL. 368 receiving yards given up, 7th most in the NFL. A 118.2 passer rating when targeted, and a 50.6 coverage grade. I'm not sure what's happened to him since the early part of the year. A player like Jair Brown, yeah, he might be in year 3, but I think it's gotten to the point where he stinks. Or he plays his best ball as a hybrid linebacker, big nickel. But why is he playing at safety over a player like Marquise Siegel? Jair Brown struggled last year. Jair Brown is struggling this year. Shies away from contact. He's not good in coverage. He's somewhat slow. You know what Marquise Siegel gives you? 4.3 speed. And I know that he gave up a lot of catches early in the year. At least he got to a spot where he could make the play. It was just better offense than defense. And he has to learn to finish those plays. What helps him finish and develop? Playing time and getting snaps. How does it benefit Marquise Siegel for him for the last couple of games to be a healthy scratch for this football team? Doesn't benefit him at all. What does Nick Martin get from not even being on the game day roster to start the year and now just watching from the sideline, not even playing special teams? Doesn't benefit his development at all. You're in a spot now where you need to see who can help you for the future. And the Niners aren't letting these young players do that to prove their worth. Today's 49ers Report is brought to you by Prize Picks, the hard-hitting football action, even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks puts their users first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Join the millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. What is Prize Picks? You choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win some crazy money. A 3-pick power play for Sunday's game against the Cardinals. Preview for this ball game is up on the channel. Christian McCaffrey more than 53.5 receiving yards. George Kittle more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Trey McBride more than 67.5 receiving yards. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. We move forward on the show. A longtime veteran player like Jordan Elliott, who's had a bad couple of games as far as committing dumb penalties. We know who Jordan Elliott is at this point. He's an okay run-defending defensive tackle who's not going to be able to generate pressure on the quarterback. If you know who Jordan Elliott is, but you don't know who rookie UDFA Sebastian Valdez is or can become, why not play Sebastian Valdez at defensive tackle over Jordan Elliott to see if he can be a hidden gem as a UDFA acquisition? Sebastian Valdez was activated on Sunday, and then he was a healthy scratch and didn't actually play in the game. How does that make sense? With CJ West, why have him as a healthy scratch, which the Niners did the prior few weeks going into Sunday? And on Sunday, he only played against the Rams because Alfred Collins was hurt. See what CJ West can do. The guy has a strong punch, strong hands. He plays with violence. In the preseason, when he could stay healthy, he looked pretty explosive. In one-on-one drills, he was very difficult to block. What does he gain by being a healthy scratch and not playing? How do you expect these young players to potentially be at their best next year if they're not getting experience right now? Again, the Niners said we're trying to plan for the future. We want to keep our picks for the future. Yet you're not allowing these young players to develop and get snaps that are meaningful for the future. Jordan Watkins, he was the only wide receiver in college football last year to have 5 catches or more of 60-plus yards. He has 4.3 speed, ball tracking ability, preseason debut, caught a 50-yard bomb from Mac Jones. I know he's been dealing with some injuries, but he's healthy now, Kyle Shanahan. He has yak ability. You can use him as a weapon on this team. You are middle of the pack and one of the worst teams at generating explosive plays through the air in the NFL. Jordan Watkins can help you in that area. How about a bubble screen to him? How about an end around? How about a deep shot in which he gets vertical? How about putting him on the field to see if a safety starts to shade over to open up some things underneath? He can't get run at wide receiver? So I summarize all this by saying this. If you are building for the future, build with players who you drafted to help you in the future. The Niners are a smart organization, but right now I believe that what they're doing is not smart. They're playing some young players, dealing with their mistakes, but not playing others out of fear that they're going to make mistakes. That's conflicted. That's being indecisive. And that's not a clear decision-making process. And then I round out with this. Obviously, I've ripped this team for saying they should have made a move or moves at the NFL trade deadline to bulk up this pass rush. They never needed to trade away a first-round pick or even a second-round pick for a difference maker. My point for the 49ers going into the NFL trade deadline and why I've ripped them since, this defense so clearly needs playmakers. Who said that a trade acquisition had to be a rental? Who said that a trade acquisition was going to demand a first or second round pick? The Philadelphia Eagles gave up a third-round pick for Jalen Phillips. If he leaves in free agency, the Eagles are going to get back a third-round compensatory pick. Niner fans told me, Chase, you keep beating a dead horse saying that one player should have been traded for, and that one player wouldn't have made a difference for San Francisco. People have been in my DMs, in my mentions, saying one player isn't going to make the difference for this Niners defense. They need multiple players. You know what the Niners defense needs? They just need players and difference makers. And last night, what did Jalen Phillips do in his debut for the Philadelphia Eagles? Made a difference. And some people are saying, look at who he plays alongside. He would become the best edge rusher on this Eagles team, or on this Niners team, excuse me. And last night, he was the best edge defender on the Eagles team. He had 8 pressures. He had a pressure rate of 19.4%, 7 hurries, 6 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, a fumble forced and a fumble recovery, and he stuffed Josh Jacobs on a critical 4th and 1 late in the game and helped to dislodge the ball. You know what that is right there? That is a difference maker. You know what the Niners don't have enough of now or in the future? Difference makers on defense. And even if he leaves Philadelphia, they give up a third, they get a 3rd-round pick back. The Niners couldn't make a move like that? Yes, they could have. They elected not to. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Appreciate all of you for supporting the channel, watching the content. Be back in the studio tomorrow. Can't wait to see all of you then. Until then, let's go.